Hello, this is David Baumblatt from Terebinth Leadership. Thanks for joining. Today's program, we're going to be talking about globalism and nationalism. These two topics, very rarely do we understand, at least in detail, what they are. We throw them out many times. I believe one of the main reasons why Donald Trump got elected under MAGA is the notion of nationalism. And I think many of the reasons why his MAGA supporters, to include me, have gone away is because his deviation away from nationalism. So it's good to talk about what is this concept of nationalism. If you're from a military background, fascism and nationalism are very similar, and that is it also has a lot of a military core ethic. And so the point is it would be natural that those who served in the military, and it's a small subculture in America, only about 1% serve, but these echoes of nationalism, duty, honor, country, most military veterans, regardless of what country you are, the military itself, definitely they build on these values of nationalism. Anyway, shout out also to the West Point class of 2026, today's graduation. Quick story in West Point. I've said many times it's the biggest accomplishment of my life, graduating West Point. But I've also said many times that West Point is not, just like America has changed, diversity has been thrown into America, all these great institutions, namely West Point, have been affected by it. So I'm not trying to be a negative person, but is today's West Point like years ago? No, similar like America, but what a just an unbelievable institution that was. I still remember some of the fond memories or unfond memories. It is what it is. West Point is generally not a great place. They say it's a great place to come from, not a great place to go to. There's a lot of logic in that. But either way, it is a major accomplishment to those who graduate in 2026. But if anyone's been following my videos, know how I feel many times about the military, and that is I question, are they serving for duty, honor, country? Or is it many times about followership, a paycheck, and a pension? And we'll see where this country goes. But anyway, let's keep going. Let's look at some of the news here, and then we'll go through step by step. But anyway, first is interesting. We have Tucker Carlson. I've mentioned many times, I'm finding Tucker more and more interesting. I think what I said here, and this is, again, we're talking about nationalism. I just don't believe MAGA. It's not like I'm saying the Democrats are into nationalism, but I think we've said that many times on my program, or I said it, that the Democrats and Republicans are not that much different. Many MAGA people would find this outrageous, saying we are so much different than those liberal Democrats. I find many times the MAGA people to be very liberal. But anyway, let's see what Tucker Carlson has to say. Pretty interesting.
On one level, this is the saddest moment in a long time. It's not just the death of Thomas Massey's immediate political career, which may be resurrected, one never knows. It's obviously the death of MAGA, whatever that was. But it's also, of course, the end of the Republican Party. The Republican Party of right now bears absolutely no resemblance to the Republican Party we thought we had just elected less than a year and a half ago. None at all. And so that's not all bad. And it's not bad because the one thing we know is that nothing will be the same after this. This is too much. They went too far. We now know how the system actually works. And no, it's not a democratic system. It bears no resemblance to a democratic system. A small number of people who are more concerned about a foreign country than our country decide who gets elected. No, that's not a hateful conspiracy theory. That's a demonstrable fact that they admit. So it's on the basis of that we can proceed. And by that, I mean the truth. What people whispered about, those crazies on the internet, has now been proven for everyone to see. Nothing will ever be the same again. And you got to think it's going to be a little better because there will be actual reform. We have gone too far. And so whatever comes next, whether it's in the Republican Party or outside it, is likely to be much more honest and direct and less ashamed, much more willing to tell the truth, as uncomfortable as it may make some people, because the truth is always worth telling. And a politics based on anything but the truth is always poisonous. So yes, this is a low point. Is it the end point? Not at all. It's the beginning, maybe of something great.
So one thing about that was, you've seen a lot of the MAGA people, they've said that, yeah, you don't mess with Donald Trump, he won, and Massey. But I would probably say it's not necessarily the power of Donald Trump, the influence of Donald Trump. Don't mess with Donald Trump. Maybe it's you don't mess with Israel and the Jews. As sad as it is, as embarrassing it is, maybe that's the main thing. Maybe Massey, it wasn't him going, why? because I truly believe that in some way, shape, or form, Donald Trump compromised or bribed, to include the Epstein files. And again, I've said this before, I look at the Epstein files less as a criminal pedophilia case, and go at it, I'm sure there is. I'm looking at more from national security. But anyway, what did we learn from Massey? Don't go up against Israel. And I've said this many times, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, because there's a couple videos and pictures about, again, Donald Trump saying the 51st state of Greenland, the 51st state of Venezuela, the 51st state of Iran, and this and that. Notice he's never said this, the 51st state of Israel, because think about it. What we do for Israel, I've said many times, and I'm skipping around. There's a lot of things to talk about. But anyway, if Donald Trump, if Israel became the 51st state of America, where you can move to Israel, you could, I guess it would maybe be a governorship. You could run for governor of Israel, live in Israel, get all the benefits, this and that. It would change the equation drastically of why are we supporting Israel? Why are we going to wars? Because it's our country. You can live there. You can get the benefits. You could run for politics there, this and that. But that country has never been mentioned as the 51st state. Yet Israel like to say we're brothers, we're families, they're our strongest allies, this and that. Never the 51st state. But Greenland, Venezuela, Cuba, Iran, you'll see it. Donald Trump's pretty quick to say all that stuff. He's never said that about Israel, which would make sense, because if we're such good allies with Israel, that we give so much money, we're willing to die for them, then let's make them the 51st state, because then it would make more sense. Why do our tax money go to Israel? No, it's going to America because it's the 51st state and you can move there. But anyway, let's go to this one. And part of this is about nationalism, and we're going to get to Charlie Kirk's speech. And like everything, I don't agree all with Charlie Kirk. One of the things that Charlie Kirk did, which is very similar to MAGA, when the topic of race came up, he danced around it many times. Very similar to MAGA, like a corporation. As long as they're smart and they pay their taxes and they have money and they're patriotic, I don't care what race you are. Yeah, you've heard that before. But anyway, we'll go to that. But this is also about it. This is maybe you've heard of this Congressman Brandon Hill. And Brandon Hill says America, hopefully everyone can see it. He says America belongs to Americans, not to the world. What have I always said? Yeah, who's an American? Who's an American? That's a pretty interesting question. According to MAGA, race doesn't exist. It's only the content of your character. Basically, if you're rich. Yeah, I'm not necessarily agreeing with that. This guy, Valkyrie, look at Brandon Hill with his Indian friends and what I said, his Indian family. He needs to take his Indian family and go back home to India. But anyway, when we're talking about nationalism, we have to have courage to talk about race, which is, again, I'm still amazed that we have an Indian as our director. We're going to talk about a little bit about MAGA. MAGA, what you're seeing is it's almost like a childish behavior, like in college. You've heard this, fuck around and find out, man. Like a lot of MAGA, and we're talking politicians, they're really excited about these wars. Most of these people never served in their military. And if a military draft came, and again, my stance is I believe in violence. I don't believe in the sanctity of life. It's not like I'm some peace nip. Sometimes violence is necessary. But hopefully in leadership, there's a morality behind it. Hence the death penalty. And I should do a video on my feelings on the death penalty. So the point is I'm not one of these, and remember, these same politicians that are like, fuck around and find out what we'll go to Mike, let's get into war. Then they always say, violence is never the answer. I absolutely don't condone violence. You hear that bullshit. No, violence many times is the answer. It is what it is. But you live by the sword, you die by the sword. And what am I saying? Hopefully there's morality behind your violence. There's a sense of ethics of why you resorted to violence. I don't think we have it anymore. I think it's a corporation. It's in our best interest. So let's just kill and bomb people. But anyway, this is Mike Lee, who also knows about me, and he absolutely ignores a military veteran. Guy never served in the military. But anyway, Mike is, man, he's like, look at Iran. They messed with the wrong president. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. It almost is like this this guy, this is straight out of like a freshman in college. Really, Mike? Well, guess what? The war has now been escalated and we need a military draft for you and your kids. Time to sign up, Mike. Fuck around and find out. And Mike would be like, no, no, no. But you hear this sort of rhetoric a lot from MAGA. They're just really quick on, yeah, let's go to war, man. Like it's going to be just dandy. Here we go on this again. This is about, and I've done the video here, if you could see this. This is Greenland. Look at Donald Trump. I mean, is this, and what did I write here? What have I said? China, when it comes to their soft power, they are not very good. In fact, if you want, hopefully everyone, go down to this video. It's episode 67. And I talk about how horrible the Chinese are with soft power. I mean, these people are dog shit in China. They don't understand soft power. But guess what? China's winning in the soft power. Why? Look at that. That's our president. I mean, he looks like a creepy pedophile guy or something like that, some type of bully, some type of mafia. I mean, if I was thinking about that, what if that was the president of Canada and he said, hello, Alaska, we want you back. And then they start selling delegations to Alaska. What would we would declare a state of war against Canada. I mean, this is a creepy dude here. This is about, like I said, look at China. In fact, let me just do a quick thing. Great way to understand China is to understand the military and understand the Jews. I've said many times, the Chinese are considered the Jews of Asia. And it's a very military culture where, like I said, in America, unless you're in that 1%, the military in America is a subculture. Most people don't know. It's like an NFL game when they see the military. Like, yeah, let's go bomb other countries. Yeah, have fun with that. And when Americans get kidnapped and beheaded by Iranian entities, you think, are you surprised? But anyway, the soft power. And if you remember that video, go to that video. I forgot. It was, I think it's my Rumble. It's Rumble 67. If you go to Rumble and you see, I did a video on it, and the Chinese were horrible at soft power. Now, they remind me of the Jews. China has to use so much propaganda. And I could say good stuff about China, and I do many times. But they have to use so much propaganda to tell you how good China is. They used that one time, got into what's called this wolf warrior diplomacy. Oh my God, what a complete failure. They tried to act like Donald Trump tough guys. Ain't working. But now China's winning the soft power. Why? Because they just need to shut their mouths. Why? Because we're screwing up in America. I mean, you bombing countries, even Greenland. Greenland is not, what we spout about, like communism, dictatorships, going to war with Iran. Well, that's not Greenland. They're our allies. So anyway, Donald Trump and America are really ruining our soft power. And I say it's sort of like the Jews, and that is, let's go back to the white people. In many ways, whiteness, we're talking European culture, white, Western countries, it's basically magical. We don't need to sell it. In fact, we're too good. Why? Too many people want to legally and illegally immigrate to us. Now, it is changing. I'm telling you, like I said, people are leaving, people are changing their mind. That is true. But overall, I mean, the beauty of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed man or woman, the culture, the European culture, the freedom, we don't really need to sell that much on the West. China does, or many of you, I mean, like India. I mean, do you want to go to India? Are you dying to literally move to India? I could tell you, Indians are dying to move there. Like Africa. Are you really dying to say, man, I've always wanted to go to Africa? You think the Africans are dying? Absolutely. We don't need to sell anything. So it's sort of like the Jews. It's to the point of many times they don't realize the Jews are like, why do people not like us? Like they don't understand, or like the Chinese. Many times the Jews are just not very likable people. I remember growing up one time in New York, there's different sort of sects of Jews there. I won't go into the story, but there was one Hasidic Jews. They were just doing some weird stuff. I looked at my dad and then I looked at them and he's like, we're not those type of Jews. But either way, love them as they are, the Jews. They're just in general not likable people. It just is what it is. I don't have a problem with Jews. In fact, I like them, but they're just not very likable people. That's how the Chinese are. Even the Asians don't like the people. Like I said, if you go to Asia, the creme de la creme are the Japanese, which, interesting enough, they're considered the Germans of Asia. The Japanese are, we don't have much time. I don't want to deviate, but I was having dinner one time in Shanghai with a government official, Chinese government official, and he sort of whispered this to me because they're not supposed to admit it. But even he said, he's like, man, the Japanese, they just have something. He goes, we don't have it in China. He's right. The Japanese, it's pretty nice. I do recommend you going to Japan. Now, they're going to be xenophobic and they're going to be racist, but maybe the racism in China versus Japan is Japan are more polite. But Japan, and I think this is the video with Charlie Kirk. But anyway, going back to the story, the Chinese are just not very likable people. It is what it is. God bless them, but they need to. Guess what? The Jews are the same way. The Jews are just not very likable people. But anyway, going back to this soft power, China is winning soft power 100%, and I agree with it. Oh my God, so many. Why? Well, you go around and bombing other countries, taking over Cuba, Venezuela, and even our own allies. Probably going to get Canada soon. That's a surefire way where people don't like you. I mean, if there was ever a time that foreign nations probably want to get on, think about it. Nuclear weapons to foreign countries is like the Second Amendment guns to American citizens. Do you trust the American government? Do you want to give up your guns? No. We as American citizens don't even trust our own government. That's why we want the Second Amendment and guns. If we don't even trust our government, why would foreign governments trust America? Hence, what we have for guns, I probably would recommend to them, you better get some nuclear weapons. Why? Because America, we're deviating from any sense of morality. It's now laws of the jungle. Because I've said this, the global order is crumbling now. So there's not, we are no longer going to have a rules-based system because we made the system. We made the rules, but our power now is dropping. We're not going to be able to enforce the rules now. That's why we're also pulling out of NATO, which I get, and I agree with that. It's not a big deal. But the point being is now there's no rules. So guess what? Now it's just lion eats lion now. And if you're other countries where there's not a rules-based system to protect you, like a legal system, you better get armed, people. And so when I hear about Russia or China, these other nations building up their military nuclear weapons, you don't blame them at all. In fact, probably the biggest danger threat to the America, or not America, the world, probably America or Israel. I've said many times, who is my money to launch the next nuclear weapons? America or Israel? Again, we've already launched it once in World War II. My money's on us. So if you're these other countries, probably build up, and it goes back to soft power. I think more countries. Think about it. If you're Greenland, if you're NATO, if you're Europe, are you more worried about China or Russia taking over Greenland, or maybe America? I'd probably be more worried about America. And that is just, people are just not understanding it. They're rolling their eyes. Our soft power's dropping. But you hear a lot of these MAGA people like, man, who cares? Fuck around and find out. We're taking it. We're tough guys. All these people never served in the military. This will be interesting how this thing goes. Anyway, let's go. So 1 second. So anyway, if you want to see that video, 67 Rumble, and I talked about how horrible Chinese soft power is. But with stuff like this, hello, Greenland, tell you, all the Chinese need to do now is just shut their mouth. Don't do anything. Trump is just doing all this stuff. Anyway, let's go to this. This is, again, that point. Hopefully everyone can see it. Now Trump is talking about the United States of the Middle East. Oh, yeah. Notice he said that he wants to put Iran and all these countries at the 51st state of America. He never mentions Israel, though, which would be the common factor. You know, if we are so close to Israel, they're our brothers. We're going to die for them. Our money and their money, our military, their money. They are the Jews. They have to say, let's make them the 51st state, which makes sense, right? Iran, I mean, come on, we don't have much in common with Iran. Even Venezuela. NATO or Greenland would be fine, but it'd be nice to ask permission from them first. But Israel is our greatest ally. That should be first on the agenda, the 51st state. Who would say no? Of course, Israel. And I don't blame them. Israel is just smart. In some ways, I look up to the Jews. I look up to Israel because we are clowns. And I've said this before. The one thing I like about Trump is I've had talks before to these cuck Europeans. In some ways, I like what Trump is doing. If you're remember that whole saying, if you kind of feel like you're fat, hang out with fatter people and you don't feel as fat. If you're an American man and you feel like you're a cuck, all you have to do is go to Western Europe and hang out with Western European men. You'll feel like you're Conan the Barbarian. I've said many times to these dumb cuck Western European men, you are an American colony. Oh, David, you're ridiculous. We're partners. We're friends. Okay, we're partners and friends, but we're the boss. No, you're not. Yes, we are, you dumb fucks. I mean, it's just really, guess what Donald Trump is showing? It is. I worked in NATO. It's as completely clear as possible. So maybe a guy like Donald Trump needs to throw the hard truth on these Western Europeans, which again, I totally agree with Donald Trump. It's time to get out of NATO. It's time for these Europeans to admit we're cucks. We are an American colony. So you have two choices. You can either submit and say, yes, Daddy America, you're our daddy, or maybe you could stand up on your own 2 feet and become a grown adult. Maybe that's how it is. But anyway, the same thing with Israel, same thing. I mean, many people are like, no, we're allies, we're partners with Israel. No, Israel controls us. It is what it is. If you agree with that, that's fine. But if you don't, I just think you're ignorant. But again, if there was ever something like the 51st state, probably Israel would be a good choice. Israel wouldn't do it. Of course they wouldn't. Well, they're smart. We're dumb. Can't blame them. Anyway, let's go to the last thing here. This is, again, this dumb MAGA. We'll get into the videos here. And this is, these are all MAGA propagandists. He's like, look at Gunther. This is like MAGA full speed here. He's like, breaking. Hopefully everyone can see that. Yeah, he's like, breaking. Trump goes full war hawk mode. Yeah, man. I mean, they're just, yeah, that's exactly why we elected Trump, because we wanted a war hawk. I mean, look at these MAGA people. They are just so, I wonder if Gunther ever served in the military. But again, this is where the speeches or the campaigns that I saw on Donald Trump versus MAGA, we saw totally different things. Or MAGA has turned into a cult. So when Trump deviates from policy, they don't care. They're just going to follow him. But, you know, this sort of wartime president, man, this is a guy, too, who dodged the draft multiple times in Vietnam. Now, if you're a private citizen who dodged the draft, I get that. That's another thing. But if you're a guy who wants to be the president, the commander in chief, now I knew that, but the assumption was he was going to not be into wars. Meaning he's going to say, hey, I dodged the draft in Vietnam. I think wars are horrible. Let's stay out of them. So as the commander in chief, I'm trying to get us out of these wars. I think it's the opposite. I mean, this is just full war hawk mode, and MAGA loves it, man. Fuck around and find out, okay? Like I said, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. But I'll tell you, if I was these other foreign countries, I wouldn't trust America. And I'm telling you, if you thought that trip to China was just awesome from the American side, like, yeah, man, we worked it. It was our deal, dominance. No, Donald Trump got played. I'm telling you, I know China very well. They looked upon that as a time to mend relationships, absolutely. At the end of the day, though, where is that needle going? China is going to hunker down. And right after Trump left, Putin came. Now, I don't blame China at all. I think China's smart for this. I wouldn't trust America. In fact, all this logic that MAGA thinks about invading countries, that we should invade China. Same thing. It's a communist or fascist country, authoritarian, all these sort of things. Why aren't we doing it? Because China's pretty powerful. That's one of the main reasons. And we make a lot of money off China. Not you and me, but the corporations do. Anyway, let's talk about this video from Charlie Kirk. And I think in general, he's on it. But we missed the boat in two ways. One, MAGA has deviated. And two, if you listen to Charlie Kirk, he will tiptoe around the subject of race. Again, race doesn't matter. Like, he's big into gender. Gender's real. But if you talk about race, listen, the content of your character, there's no race. Then you don't understand how nationalism is. It just end of story. If you're not willing to recognize that, one, race is real, and two, race is important, then you don't understand the fundamentals of nationalism. But anyway, let's go with Charlie Kirk.
To avoid major mistakes that we made in America. Japan has the chance to avoid major mistakes that we made in America. Mistakes that we only dodged thanks to Donald Trump having his life spared by just a couple centimeters. But for Japan, time is running out. Globalism wants to erase the distinctions that separate different countries and cultures. They preach a doctrine they call diversity, but they actually hate diversity more than anything. Globalism wants to turn 200 countries on Earth into one indistinguishable blob. Imagine for a second you were at a giant feast with 100 different foods available. Chicken, beef, sushi, which I'm enjoying here, vegetables, French fries, lasagna, watermelon, and so on. Then imagine someone taking all of those foods and dumping them into one giant blender, blending it all up until it was one big sludge. Then imagine that person feeding that sludge to you and telling you it was delicious. This is what the globalists want to do with the world's countries. They want no more America. They want no more Europe. They want no more Japan. And on Europe, if you have visited Europe recently, it is a conquered continent and unrecognizable from where it was a couple decades ago from those that remember it. Globalists claim to support democracy, but that is a lie too. They want oligarchy. They want elections to be irrelevant choices where you get the same policies no matter who wins. They want the same power to steamroll any protests from the public. If the public somehow votes against them, they want to replace them with new people imported from abroad. They've already done that in some states back in my home country. These are very destructive, power-hungry, and dare I say, evil people. That's why any group around the world that is fighting against them is my friend. I want America to remain American, and I want Japan to remain Japanese. If Tokyo became identical to New York, or Japan looked just like the Philippines, that would not just be a loss for the Japanese, but for the whole world. The entire world is better off having a Japan that is emphatically, unapologetically Japanese. And that is why I want to deliver a warning here from someone who has seen what it can do, who has fought against it, not simply just to this room, but to the people of Japan.
Okay, so I've seen a couple episodes of Charlie Kirk talking about race, and he dances around it. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, but by all means, tell me in the comments. But he wants Japanese to remain Japanese. And the elephant in the room on that is racially. That's the number one thing. That is part of culture. That's your history. It is your ethnic, your heritage. So then he's like, and I want America to remain American. I would think that means white. But again, if you pressured him, and I've seen before, he doesn't. He's not. So the point being is Japanese is to remain Japanese primarily with their race. And that's found all throughout, I've said many times, the non-Western world, to include Israel. The only countries in the world that cannot talk about race, at least comfortably or tolerated without being censored or negative, would be the Western countries. So when Charlie says, I want Japanese to remain Japanese, or I want Japan to remain Japanese, he's probably referring to, as we all would agree, primarily racially Japanese. And that's how the Japanese look at it too. And then he says, I want America to remain American. What does that mean? Now, America, there was a diversity in that. Why? A Frenchman, Germans, Brits, Dutch, specifically a lot of Western European white people. That was our form of diversity, you could say. Is that what Charlie's referring to? Heard many times when he talked about it where there was non-whites and it was like, Now we're going to look at two other people that talked about race. And I say this before because if you're going to understand nationalism, the elephant in the room is race. And you see it before. It's such a taboo topic, even with MAGA. At the end of the day, MAGA loves legal immigration, whether it's for cheap labor or for highly qualified labor, meaning as long as there's a financial or economic element to there, because we're a corporation, MAGA does not want you to discriminate against race. They believe that it's a multiracial society. That's just not nationalism. So we're going to listen to two people. One is Owen Schroeder, which shout out to him. He gave me 2 interviews when he used to work at, InfoWars. But even these, you could say, I believe they've gone past MAGA, sort of like me past MAGA. And the question of race comes up in this auditorium. And I believe they've answered this in a very cuck manner. It's a short clip, and I'm going to tell you how I answer this. And I can tell you, I have radically changed from the time I've lived in America and then in 2010 in China as a racial minority. So I don't blame them. They don't have the experience that I have. I would never say the stuff that I'm saying now if I never lived in these environments as a racial minority. But after living in China as in this racist environment, and this is not a negative thing, I've radically changed how I view this. But let's see how they answer this question and talk. It's a simple question. Here we come, right here.
Non-white majority. The concern with the U.S. turning into a country with a non-white majority, the concern is that the significant demographic shift will change the country fundamentally, and America will cease to be America.
So obviously, this guy's some type of brown person. I don't know, India, Nepal, stuff like that. So that's noted. That's fine.
This is echoed in the dissident right-wing spheres. And I want to quote Ben Shapiro here. He said in 2016, if I'm not incorrect, he said, "I don't give a damn about the so-called browning of America. Color doesn't matter. Ideology does."
Well, Israel cares. I could tell you Israel and Benny the Bagel Shapiro. I don't have a problem with Benny the Bagel, but he is an agent of a foreign power, Israel. Nothing wrong with that, but it should be noted. Israel is a state for buying of the Jews racially. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's good. But it's this hypocriticalness, and we're going to get into it, that Benny the Bagel thinks it's great that America becomes brown, but he doesn't want Israel to become brown. So what is that? That's called hypocrisy. And that's why we call bullshit on people like Benny the Bagel.
And this has caused massive infighting in the right wing. And my question is, do you associate with the mainstream conservative view that Ben Shapiro and MAGA spouts, or the more dissident and alt-right?
Well, I don't think MAGA spouts that.
Now, I have to admit, him and Owen, I'm telling you, they are going to dance around. If what I consider to be true nationalists, these guys, what they're saying, they're not true nationalists. I think they're even worried in America to really just state the obvious, which I'm going to tell you right now, it's so obvious. But even these guys that are on the really right, watch how they answer this question. They dance around it. It is quite embarrassing. It's a very simple response. I'll give it to you as soon as they're done, but it is quite embarrassing what these guys do, considering that they're not Democrats, they're not liberal, they're not maybe even technically MAGA, they're more on the right side of MAGA. And the answer that they give, one word, weak. It's a very weak answer. But anyway, here we go.
I think Ben Shapiro does, but I don't think MAGA in general spouts that. So I would answer it this way. Let's just agree with Ben Shapiro for the sake of argument here, that yes, under cultural nationalism, we'd want people who have the similar values to the United States. Those do just so happen to be most of the white nations. I'm just pointing that out, that if you wanted to import people who had the most amount of your values, that does seem to be from the nations which are mostly white. So I would even grant Shapiro's argument, because, I mean, how would that actually hurt the MAGA base to grant the argument?
Well, I don't think we are taking Ben Shapiro's statements at face value at this with this quote here. I think he means something a little bit different than we're perceiving. But nonetheless, let me give you an example of something I experienced that might put this kind of into a picture for you. When I was charged by the federal government and I was going through the process of defense, I dealt with a Chinese prosecutor. I dealt with, I think it was from Azerbaijan, I forget which country, a country in the Middle East, who was a magistrate judge. And then there was another prosecutor, I forget where it was. The point is, 3 foreigners that were now American were involved in my case. I had a free speech case. They even cite my speech as the reason for putting me in jail. Now, I don't know if it's the perfect example, but I look at that and I say, here's three people who weren't born in the country, who don't have that ingrained love of free speech. It's not in their heart. It's not in their...
So again, we're going to finish it, but this is the bullshit again of as long as you're born in America and you have values and this and that, and they're kind of diluting it. We're going to let them finish. I'm just saying they're talking out their asshole, but let them finish.
Soul. It's something they might have been taught. It's something they might have learned as like a textbook concept, but they don't understand the soul of it. They don't understand the spirit of it. And so that's where I think it starts to come into play. There's an American spirit. There's an American soul. You have to have it. You can learn it through a textbook, but when you come from a foreign country that doesn't, live and die by these ideas and practices, it's a little bit different when the rubber meets the road. So I do think it matters. It might not matter what your skin color is, but it matters that if you...
Oh my God. I like Owen. I have to admit, he got me on his show twice. And also what's crazy is Owen is starting to disavow MAGA, like he's maybe going far right. And what did he say? You've heard this thing. It's not the skin color, this and that. It's like, oh my God. But like I said, I try to think, it's hard for me to forget who I was 16 years ago in America. I've changed so much in what I'm seeing that, meaning I probably would have said the same thing. Literally, I remember at the FBI and at Harvard and all this stuff, I was also spouting the, let's be politically correct. So I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. We're going to let them finish, but oh my God, embarrassing. Not that you've heard this, not the color of our skin. That's all we are. Hello, have you ever been to Japan? Their skin looks pretty white. In fact, some of the Japanese, their skin is whiter than yours. So how are we going to tell them apart? You can't tell Asian people. That's all we are. Our race is just the skin color. What is European? Just skin. What's African? Just skin. Like, this is the indoctrination. Diversity or strength, military veterans, thank you for your service. We just spout out. Well, there's more to just the skin color. Well, let them finish. It's really embarrassing.
Come from a country that doesn't value free speech, you really can't even comprehend what that means to Americans.
But even
I
if
don't
it
think
did,
you can.
Let's just say, for the sake of argument, very quickly, that it did. That everybody in the United States said, you know what? We just don't want mass migration from only brown countries. Let's just say that they did. So fucking what? We have the control to do that if we want to do that. Nobody bitches if Japan does that.
Good, hopefully. Okay, good point, well made.
Nobody cares. They don't give a shit.
Right.
Not a bit. So the thing is that if it's the case that you really want a democracy, you really want a republic, you really want the will of the people, well, mass migration in all Western nations is resisted by all people in Western nations. Isn't that amazing? They all hate it. Every one of them. In the UK, they mass voted against it. They hate it in Australia. They hate it in Western Europe. They loathe it in Eastern Europe. It's unpopular everywhere it's tried.
All right, let me just comment on this in real quick. It's as simple as this. Also, growing up in New York is probably the most international city in the world. I couldn't imagine going back to it now. It's probably a total toilet bowl of diversity. I'm really not interested. But even growing up, my father would say, David, all these people in New York, born and raised in New York, born and raised, guess what? Racial segregation. And people said, yeah, but there was a time where we discriminated against the Irish and the Italians. Of course we did. Think about it. If the world was all full of white people, 100%, we're going to segregate again. It's the way we do it. But when you had a bunch of Europeans together, it'll work. It's the same thing if a Chinese, if a Korean or a Japanese discovered a new land and they said, hey, let's make this an Asian country. The Koreans, the Japanese, the Chinese, we could work it out together. They probably could. The very same reason it was like, hey, there's a British, there's a German, there's a French, and we did it. And there was a little bit discrimination here and there. But now when you add in all these other races, it doesn't work. Even in New York, you see them, they're separated. So my answer to that young brown kid is very simple. One, multiracial societies don't work. They don't work. If you disagree with me, name me the successful society that's multiracial. And please, if you want, tell me Singapore, because most people don't get Singapore. There's none. Multiracial societies don't work. That's number one. If you do, give me an example. Number two, I don't want to be your experiment. The people that are coming to America that are pushing this are non-white people. In your countries that you're coming from, multiracial societies are not permitted. Japan, Saudi Arabia, China. So why are you experimenting this on whites? If you think multiracial societies work, then Leadership 101, lead by example. And I can tell you, China's not doing it. So the point is, you show us, European Americans, that, wow, look at India, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Egypt, look at Japan. We are a multiracial society and it's worked. Now you do it. That would be a little different. But all these people that are coming here, these brown people, are coming from societies and cultures that do not permit multiracial societies. So I don't want to be your experiment. I believe multiracial societies don't work exactly how your society is. That's number one. Two, I'm not into this bullshit, the color of your skin, nor do I really care about people, well, they were born and raised. Now, it is true. The amount of knowledge that I have in China allows me, unlike a typical white person, to bond more or bridge the cultural gap with Chinese. But I'm telling you, I'm never going to be Chinese, even if I was born and raised here, and they'll never accept me. So this whole fact about, well, as long as I understand our values and you're born and raised, no, it doesn't matter how much you try to turn a man into a woman. He will ultimately revert back to his DNA. He's a man. Vice versa with a woman. The same with race. It goes beyond skin color. If you continue to say it's just the color of our skin, I don't know, you are a communist moron. It is the most retarded thing. What is European? What is African? What is Asian? What is Indian? The color of our skin, it is DNA that goes bone deep into our genomes. So sure, if you're born and raised in America versus the foreigner, yeah, there'll be definitely some major cultural bridges that you'll cross, but there'll always be a difference. Again, go to New York City and just look at people that were born and raised in New York City, and you're still going to see the separation. It doesn't work. But back to the brown kid, I would just say very simple. Hey, Golden Tulip, I see you. Good morning. Back to the brown kid, I'd say, excuse me, where are you from? And he might do this bullshit. Well, I'm from America. Okay, well, where are your parents from? Well, they were born in America. Okay, we'll play this fucking game till the end. Where the fuck are you from? Where's your ancestry? Oh, okay, well, my grandparents immigrated to America, and they're from India. Okay, so you're Indian. That's your ethnicity, correct? Yes, I'm Indian. Okay, how many people in India that you know are citizens that are of non-Indian ethnicity? Probably fucking none. Probably close to zero. That's why this Indian sand nigger called Kash Patel, he's a fucking fraud and a traitor. You could go back, since we're on the Indian subject, let's talk about Kash. But anyway, go back to J. Edgar Hoover. Like him or not, J. Edgar Hoover would consider him an absolute abolition. I mean, just a fucking absolute disgrace to the FBI, never. So back to the discussion about the brown people. I don't care where they say, well, I'm from Japan. I'm from India. I'm from Saudi Arabia. Okay, can I go to your country and become a citizen? And most of the time, the answer is none. Then we'll talk about multiracial. What's the percentage of your country citizens that are white, that are black, if we're not talking about Africa, this and this and that? And you are going to be amazed that it's like, look at China. It's called 0%. It's basically zero. Okay, so it sounds like the country that you're from, the culture that you're bringing to America, the culture that you learned from your generations is multiracial societies not only don't work, they're not permitted. Well, that's what we're going to do in the West because white people aren't pushing it unless you're some weird, retarded liberal, I guess you're pushing it. Normal white people don't want this bullshit. So the part is lead by example. Show us. Say, hi, we're Japan. They'll never do it. And I like the Japanese. But hi, we're Japan, and now we're 10% black, 10% white, 10% Indian, and we're kicking ass and taking names. That would change the argument. But my point is I don't have a problem with these non-Western countries being ethno-states. What I have, and you've always seen my anger, go back to the video too on 67 when I talked about it, is I don't like the hypocrisy. Just like these fucking Jews, Benny the Bagel Shapiro. Israel is one of the most racist fucking countries around. I don't have a problem with that. What I have is when they use the hypocrisy and say, you white people need to be multiracial. Yeah, well, why don't you be multiracial? No, it's the hypocrisy. And we see it all the time. Go to Africa. You think you're as a white man? I mean, have you seen the news of South Africa? Yeah, it's called the white genocide. They don't like us there. I'm telling you, in China, the reason in some ways the Chinese treat foreigners pretty good is two reasons. One, there's almost none of us. And two, we're never going to be a citizen. So they're not afraid of power. These foreigners come to America, they're going to become citizens. They're going to own you, control you. They're going to be the politicians. It changes everything. Where in Asia, they know it. If you're not of the Chinese ethnicity, you will never, you'll be lucky if you're going to get a permanent resident, but you'll never become a citizen. You're never going to have political power. You're never going to have power. And two, think about it. Think about the blacks in America. What if there was only 100 black men in America? These guys would be like VIPs. You know, a lot of these disgusting white women want to be with a black guy. Not all of them, some. But if there was only 100 black guys, these 100 black guys would be like, this is the best thing's ever happened to me. Because why? Because they would be exotic. They wouldn't be a burden. They wouldn't be a problem. Only 100. This is what I'm talking about, China. And so part of it is the numbers. The numbers in these non-Western countries of foreigners is so low. And two, the power is so low. Number one, you're never going to become citizen. So I like Owen. He gave me the opportunity to be on his talk show twice. I appreciate that. But this is a guy now who's saying MAGA is screwed up. I'm telling you, weak fucking answers. But I agree. If I didn't live in China as long as I have, I'd probably say the same thing. But after experiencing this, I wouldn't take that little brown boy's bullshit in a fucking heartbeat. I'd immediately say, what is your ethnicity? Well, I'm Pakistani ethnicity. Okay, let's talk about Pakistan. How many white people have citizenships in this country of Pakistan? Probably a big goose egg. That's how many. Well, then, if that's your culture, why are you imposing a different culture? We are not going to be your laboratory rats of an experiment. Why don't you change Pakistan and show us that multiracialism is a success? And if it is a success, it will influence me to think, wait, but if it isn't, well, then that proves it. But I'm not going to be your experiment. And truth be told, it's not the people that are doing it. It's not these brown people. It's the fucking corporations. Maybe you think it's Israel. I'm not going to argue with that. But it's the powers that be and these politicians. And that's what a lot of these MAGA people say. It's the liberal. No, it's not just these liberal Democrats. These MAGA people are a piece of shit. They love legal immigration. As long as there's money. Even this guy, Charlie Kirk, go back to him when he talked about immigration. He's like, well, you know, if you respect the culture, if you pay your taxes, the same fucking talking points with MAGA. And the same thing, you have these two guys, which I probably agree with them a lot, but I'm telling you, what do I think their response was? Yeah, 2 words, limp dick. What a limp dick answer. And it just shows how white men are so uncomfortable talking about race. That's why I love the Chinese. What did I say? If you feel like you're a fat ass, hang around with people that are fatter than you, and it makes you feel better. I grew up in America too, thinking that white men are racist. After living in China now, fuck no, man. I have changed my mind. Don't think so? Let's see some stuff that's going on with these people.
Nice, good experience. I genuinely don't understand how do people have these nice, good experiences in China, because for me, it's been nothing but a bunch of racist interactions or weird interactions that happen almost every single day. And I know that a lot of people will disagree with me, a lot of people will say that, oh, I'm the problem, but I'm genuinely tired. Like, I came back home right now because just now this thing happened again out of the blue, and I was like shaking of anger, and I wanted to cry. I don't know why it is happening so much to me, I don't know if I like attract this, because how can you attract people treating you this way? But it's either these like super racist interactions and people telling you to go back to your country, or it's some weird sexual harassment situations with these old crazy men who think that all foreign girls are some prostitutes. Just now, me and my friend went to the store in our neighborhood, and this man was
Yeah, I should hold in. A lot of the Asian men look at white women as whores and prostitutes. It's true, though. I've said many times, we have, thanks to feminism, the corporations, multiculturalism, a lot with feminism, white women have turned into the whores of the world, the stinkiest pussy of the world. It's embarrassing. And so foreign men look at that, they see, whatever the sexuality in the West of these white women, and they just think that, yeah, they're all looking to suck cock. I don't blame them. That's what they think. But I'm telling you, it's an embarrassment to think about these white women, your white mothers, white daughters. That's the image. The same reason feminism gave you this moniker called Karen. That's a very, talk about insulting moniker that you have, and you earned it with feminism. But guess what also is that reputation, is being the world's prostitute, the whore. It's really bad. This is where feminism has just turned white women really into whores.
was walking out of the store, and then he started yelling at our face that we're Indian and we should go back to our country. First of all, we're not Indian.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to tell you, whatever she is, she doesn't look white. They do give more VIP treatment to white. And I'm telling you, this is sometimes I like about the Chinese, because this goes back, if you remember from, I don't know, that other guy, Owen Schroer and the other guy, but they said people, they're talking about cultural values. It's horseshit. And they're like, but I don't like these foreigners because they don't appreciate freedom of speech. I'm telling you, these topics that are taboo in America are freedom of speech over there. They will racist. They'll be like, you look like a black nigger whore. I mean, the level racism, the free speech on topics of race or racism or gender is truly free speech in these non-Western countries. There is no way the stuff that I hear, it would never be permitted in the West. So it is a bit of a boomerang or a curveball when you hear these Westerners like, well, what we don't like about these brown people or black people is they don't have our cultural values, like free speech. Our free speech is dying in America. The amount of censorship that I had as a whistleblower is ridiculous. And a lot of people think I'm lying because they don't know what they're fucking talking about. But the taboo topics that are taboo in the West, meaning we don't have free speech, they are actually open. So this girl, we'll see what she says. I haven't seen the whole video. I know these videos, how they're going to go out. But I'm telling you, she doesn't look white. And if you're not white in Asia, there is a class system. Same thing in India. But she doesn't look like a white girl, and she knows it because you see it so evident. Meaning you're like two Americans, like a black American or an Asian American or an Indian American, go to China with their white girlfriend or white boyfriend, something, and they'll see the treatment is night and day, and they get pissed off. That's how the Chinese are, and that's mostly in the non-Western world. Anyway, let's see what she says.
But not that it matters that much, because how can you like say it to a person like that? And when I started arguing with him and telling him first, like he asked the question like, oh, where are you from? But it was like in this aggressive manner, like he didn't want to hear the answer. He just wanted to assume.
The Chinese like to classify you quick. What is your race? What is your nationality? Boom, boom, boom. What I can say is it is so, notice I talk about the military. Anyone who's been in the military knows this. The first time you meet a fellow military man, you want to know what's their rank. Superior, subordinate, or peer. It's the way it is. That's how it is in Asia. And you're like, but how can you quantify race? They can. And I'm telling you, white is at the top. Same thing with nationality, education. It's a very hierarchical structure.
All this shit and tell us to like that we're not welcome here, right? And I told him that like, oh, it's none of your business. And he said, oh, like you're Indian, shut up, basically. And I was so mad because, you know, I'm not even doing anything. I'm just minding my business with my friend. We're talking about something. We just want to go to the store, get our drinks, and go home. It's not the first time it happens. It happens so much that I genuinely don't want to leave the house and I don't want to talk to people because every single time it's this weird shit. There's been so many situations like that, honestly. Every time we go out, or even in our neighborhood where we live, it happens. One time, me and my friends were just standing next to some shop, and a group of men walked around the shop, like specifically, to look at our faces and guess which country we're from. And they were like this close to our faces, and I'm like, I get it, maybe you're curious, there's nothing wrong with like asking people where you're from or something if you're being nice about it, but like, you're still a man and we're like a group of young girls. Why are you putting your face so close to my face? Anyway, I hate it here now. I want to leave.
So what happens is a lot of these people, particularly from the West, not necessarily white people. Why? Well, you go to Asia, you're going to get a VIP treatment. Even if you're a girl or guy, it just, we always joke, however good look, if you're a white man or white woman, however good looking you think you are in the West, yeah, multiply that by 2 or something. That's in Asia. So you're going to be flattered in many ways. You're never going to be accepted. You'll be a foreigner, but you're going to be a bit of a VIP. If you're not white and you're protected, because we don't have free speech in America on these concepts of race, you get bullshitted. Oh, we're all the same. We're equal. Oh, you're beautiful. Oh, even with other stuff like the Chinese will be, you're fat. Boy, you look really fat. So we get coddled in the West for this stuff of your race. We got to be sensitive. Your body. We got to be all these sensitivities. Non-Asia, and they'll do it. So those people will go there and they'll get offended fast. And in some ways, that's sort of the stuff that white people wanted to say in the West, but you can't. Literally, it's very dangerous. We all know that. You say that stuff, maybe you're not going to get arrested, but you could easily get fired from your job. And we're not even saying like using profanity. What if you just said, why are, it's like you see 2 girls, one is an Indian girl and one is a white girl. Like picture this in America. And so no profanity, but you see a white girl and you see an Indian girl, will say at a bar, and you go up to the white girl and say, hey, can I buy you a drink? And the Indian or black or Asian, whatever, said, just curious, why did you go to her and not me? Because she's white and I think white is beautiful. You're telling me that's not going to spark things, you fucking racist, this and that? Say, I'm sorry, but I think white women are the most beautiful women in the world. Or there's that. In Asia, absolutely, they'll say that. It just is what it is. So those non-whites, they will go, especially now, if you're Indian from India or that, it's different. Why? Because they have their own issues and their skin is a lot more thick. But I'm talking about these racial minorities coming from the West that have been indoctrinated into this bullshit of multiculturalism, tolerance, equality, the evil white man, everyone's equal, this and that. Yeah, you go to Asia, they're like, nah, you're not equal. That white person's higher than you, more beautiful, higher status, better DNA. And a lot of these people will flip out and they're like, I'm leaving Asia. That's one of the reasons why you probably see a lot of white men who stay in Asia. It's just because you do get treated better. But don't forget, you are a foreigner. To my black friends, I left this clip. If you think white people don't treat you very good, you better hope that the Chinese don't get in charge. There was another video that played more. Anyway, the Chinese in Africa, and they're there doing business. What do the Chinese think of African people? Monkeys. I mean, the way they treat the Africans it would never have been tolerated if white people did that. And what changes your mind? What do I keep saying? That nobody treats racial minorities, women, and foreigners, immigrants, better than the white man. It really is. And it just changes your mind on a lot of these concepts. But anyway, let me go, because I know we're going through time. This is a quick clip on China, because we're talking about globalism and nationalism. Now, just because I'm a nationalist doesn't mean I'm all in agreement with China. Watch this little clip here about China, and what this person is saying is I'm not going to disagree with it. There are some nuances I don't have time to go into that could explain a little more. But generally speaking, I'm not going to disagree with them, which is another way that's why I've said many times that China soft power is horrible. I don't recommend people coming to China. If you're a Chinese American, that is a different story. But China is just changed. It's just not very enjoyable now in many ways. But anyway, listen to this clip.
It a few years ago in Shenzhen. If you go to China, they're piloting it a few years ago in Shenzhen. So I lived overseas. If you go to Shenzhen, back in 2017, they already had facial recognition cameras there. So if you jaywalked in Shenzhen, they would immediately detect that and send you a notification, and they would deduct money from your what they call WeChat account. They use two main apps, WeChat and Alipay. So you can actually deduct your money directly from your account. This is 4 years ago, so this is not like some sort of conspiracy theory. It's not something that's going to happen 10 years into the future. This happened pre-corona in China. And so this system in China that exists is extremely advanced. They can detect if it's a man or a woman. They can guess your age. They can detect what kind of car model it is, who the manufacturer is. This is a sort of technology that we see in all these dystopian sort of films and whatever. And people keep putting it off and thinking that this is something that's going to happen later in my kids' lifetime or my grandkids. It's already here. And if this gets implemented anywhere, especially in a Western nation, it's not going away. Israel is already talking about the fourth shot. Then they're going to be going to herpes, and they're going to ask if you're gay. They're going to be asking if you ate 3 pizzas this week because it's unhealthy. If you buy certain books in certain countries, your country doesn't like you. You'll lose points in the social credit score system. So this is already the reality of the world in certain places, and we need to be aware of that if we don't want that or if we do. And to be perfectly honest, anybody who wants this vaccine passport, it's a misnomer. It's total control. Everything you do or don't do will be calculated to the point where if they can detect your GPS signal, if you have a phone on you, they can detect who you're hanging out with. Oh, you're hanging out with somebody that said something bad 9 years ago on Weibo, okay, like a Chinese equivalent to Facebook or something like that, right? Oh, you lose 2 points. Oh, you bought Japanese books, you lose 5 points because you don't like Japan. This is what is going to come here because it's already there.
And we're doing that a little bit with contact tracing for COVID, aren't we? So that they can see where you're at and who you're with.
The simple reality is that the technology that CSIS has and all these big tech corporations, they already know where you are. It's just that they don't want to shock the system too much and admit that they have it. Edward Snowden revealed all this back in 2013. He fled to Hong Kong. They wouldn't keep him there, so now he's in Russia. Yeah. But the NSA has all of your information. They know your Google searches from like February 9th, 2004 in a bunker in Colorado.
Help me, Rhonda.
Right? They have all this information. So, but they don't, like in the US, they have the Fourth Amendment. They're not supposed to track you forever.
Well, that Fourth Amendment's not doing very well. Anyway, part of this story is 2 things. One, our corporations and government really like to study how China's model is, and they're going to implement it in America. I'm going to just give you an example. When I first went to China in 2010, using cash in China was more prevalent than it was in America. In America in 2010, a lot of credit cards, Visa cards, whatever. In China, WeChat wasn't up, and so it was amazing what people would buy cash. I mean, they would literally buy a house or a car, like a suitcase full of money. They'd have a lot of counterfeit countering machines to guard against cash, but cash was king. I mean, everyone was using cash. I use cash for most of my stuff. WeChat came out. Now it's all digital currency that's tracked, monitored, and can be shut off by the government. Now, if you're in China, cash is almost useless. It's almost useless. It's changed. Again, I look at China differently because I'm not Chinese, so it's not my country. But is this stuff being looked upon in the West? I think it is. With we don't have time. We're not going to go off subject, but you could say these digital cryptocurrencies, digital backed currencies, I believe they're going to come into effect. I am a supporter of it because it's technology. You can't move away, but I haven't seen the legalities or the laws in it. But I can tell you, I would hope that the American government continues to allow cash to be legal tender. You still want to have that option, because once they, all of a sudden, your access is censored or deleted, I mean, they control your finances, control your life. But in China, like I said, the ability to use cash now, it's gotten really bad. I'm talking literally on the streets, when you at the hawkers, like when you even buy people like not hot dogs, but you get what I mean, like the Chinese food, jiaozhas, this stuff. That was all done, especially even that now, it's all done on WeChat, which is tracked by the government. Not very good, but it's their country. They can do what they want. But I'm telling you, in America, these digital cryptocurrencies come out that are pegged to the dollar. Whoever's running this show, my advice is to maintain that cash is still considered legal tender. Otherwise, meaning that could be your backup plan if you end up getting censored or something like that. But China's changed. It is what it is, but it's definitely changed. We're going to do a couple more videos. We always went to an hour. I have more videos I want to do. Let's just look at a couple things. This is an interesting video too, because what we're not talking about is the corporations. Remember globalism? Who's really behind it? These corporations. This also shows you just how in America, we really don't have much of a value system. It's just all about the money. And I've never been a fan of, remember I talked about Kevin O'Leary? Not a big fan of him. I'm not a big fan of these billionaires. Now we got this other guy. You'll see the video. Not a fan. Where did his morals go? Out the window. As long as he's making money, he's fine. Mark Cuban.
Up there, and the fact that obviously Mark, it's pretty remarkable seeing you and Mark Cuban up there, and the fact that obviously Mark endorsed Kamala Harris back in 2020.
Well, he made a mistake. It was a big mistake.
Mark Cuban is facing backlash for partnering with Trump RX after years of slamming President Trump as a candidate in office.
I think other than you, I've been the biggest proponent of TrumpRx.com. And the reason for that is Republicans want cheaper drugs, independents.
That's what we need, man. We need cheaper drugs. As if America, well, remember what I said? You want to know why we're going to lose the war on drugs, like fentanyl, illegal drugs? Because all you have to do is look at the legal drugs. We're a drug nation. But man, when it comes to Mark Cuban, he's like, Donald Trump's a horrible president. Money? Donald Trump's not so bad. Let's sell drugs. This is what I said. These are the legal drug dealers we have right now in America. A lot of money.
Want cheaper drugs. Democrats want cheaper drugs. And together, I think we're going to do something special.
In 2024, Trump referred to Cuban as weak, dumb, and a loser, while Cuban attacked Trump as well.
That's who Donald Trump is. I've known him for 25 years. He is the most unethical.
This reminds me of the people when they talk bad about China too, meaning the corporations, but then they do business with China. It really makes you wonder, do we have morals and ethics in America? I think we're one big corporation. So you just said, I mean, is there something, Mark Cuban, that you would put morals and ethics above money? Just an interesting question, but seems like when it comes to money, he's willing to make friends with Donald Trump, probably sell out his own family for money.
Tax character, dishonest person I've ever done business with or worked with.
Now, Cuban's company, Cost Plus Drugs, is working with Trump RX to bring more than 600 generic drugs to the website.
And what makes this incredible, Mr. President, all the volume and all the people that are going to come from the site, as our volumes go up, our costs go down, which means we'll be ending up charging less to people over a period of time.
After receiving blowback for the partnership, Cuban posted on X. Everyone wants me to rip on Trump RX. Reality is, it's saving patients money on IVF and a few other drugs. A lot of money. In my opinion, anything that saves patients money is a win.
Money. You get, I mean, I get it. People got to make money, but it's an interesting question. Are there morals and ethics do we have that go above money? It's an interesting question. I don't think many. Anyway, let's go here. Quick thing about the Greenland.
operation was over? Thought the Greenland operation was over? Think again. The U.S. is opening a new consulate in Greenland's capital today. During a trip to the island, Trump's special envoy to Greenland, Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry, said that it was time for Washington to, quote, put its footprints back on the Arctic territory. And the New York Times reports negotiators from the U.S., Greenland, and Denmark have been holding confidential talks in Washington about Greenland's future over the past several months. Those talks aren't going well, at least from Greenland's perspective. Here's what the Times reports Trump's team wants: American troops in Greenland indefinitely, even if the territory becomes independent. Veto power for the U.S. over any major investment deals, read bids from Russia or China. And at the same time, the Pentagon is not waiting for those talks, already moving forward with plans for a military expansion there, which could include new troop barracks near a World War II-era airport. The Times says Greenland's leaders feel they have little leverage and are being pressured to make concessions. They're also worried that once Donald Trump winds down his war in Iran, that he's going to turn his attention back to them. The territory is even embracing or bracing themselves for action on symbolic dates like June 14th, the president's birthday, or maybe 4th of July. One member of Greenland's parliament told the New York Times if the Americans get everything they want, there will never be any real independence, adding, quote, we might as well raise our own flag halfway. The White House says the president's concerns about Greenland are undisputed by all parties and that they will continue to be negotiated. And while on the island, by the way, Landry tried a charm offensive. He said he wanted to make a bunch of friends. That didn't go well either. Well, he may have wanted to put, in his words, a footprint back on the territory. Greenlanders wanted to give him a different extremity. According to the Times, while on a walking tour of the Capitol, one Greenlander gave him the finger. And kids who he tried to hand MAGA hats refused him. So he tried a sweeter route, telling those kids they could have all the chocolate chip cookies they can eat if they visited him in Louisiana. That also didn't land. The next day, Greenland's prime minister told the...
I think you get what it is. Remember my story about soft power? Talk about globalism right now. This is what it is. Think about it. If you're Greenland right now, you're more worried about China or Russia, probably more worried about America. This is where we are. Was this MAGA? Again, our country is falling apart, and yet we want to continue to expand military. It's very like the Roman Empire, similar while the Rome, continue to expand. Trump is definitely, talk about a war hawk. Well, I'll tell you, he's leading the way, and MAGA loves it. I mean, I have no doubt about it. If he said MAGA, we're going to take Cuba, we're going to take Canada, we're going to take Greenland for national security, I think MAGA would say, let's do this. Like I said, though, sooner or later, remember that MAGA loves to say, fuck around and find out. Keep doing this. Someone's going to start pushing back. Okay, we'll end it here, and this is what this is about: being the global policeman. America was truly always the global policeman, especially when the Soviet Union fell off, and then we gradually made that position. But at that time, it was more of a global world-based order. The world order is going down. So the point being is if America can articulate some type of crimes that are committed by sovereign leaders in sovereign countries, and we go in there like an international police force like Maduro to arrest, and we think that's justified, be very careful, because what's America doing around the world? You don't think other countries could look at America as the evil person or having committed illegal acts? Every war is illegal from one side to another. Whether you get invaded or you invade them, when you kill and destroy a sovereign country, it's illegal by them. The point being is when you have might on your side, when you're military strong, many times you just walk over the rule of law with these other countries. But what did I say before? Live by the sword, die by the sword. And if America is the biggest person on the block, yeah, we could get away with this. Not a big deal. The problem is empires fall and our power is weakening. Many times, I don't want to do too much of a tangent. They're talking about military recruitment is up and this and that, because if you're going to do that way, you better have a strong military. I think it has a lot to do with Trump funneling a lot of money, your tax money, into the military, number one, lowering the standards, number two, also the economy not doing very well. But I don't have faith in this military. And guess what? As these other countries build and as these other countries join together, because our soft power is weakening, maybe this fuck around and find out attitude is going to hit us in the face. But I could tell you what Donald Trump ran on, I'm surprised. As you, as an American citizen, is this going to help out your world? Maybe if we steal the oil and take the resources, maybe that would lower costs in America. But basically, that means we're basically stealing resources from other countries. And you could say, no problem with that. Okay, I mean, I'll buy that for $1. The point being is we'll see where this goes, because as we continue to do this, other nations are watching and other nations are arming themselves because they realize that the rule of law is gone and it's might makes right. So they're going to arm up too. And sooner or later, are we probably headed to World War III? Probably so. I mean, that's the human existence, World War I, World War II, and we continue. I mean, have you ever seen war stopping? So it's probably going to go that way. And many people say war is horrible. It depends if you win or not. So if we win the next one, great. If we lose, then maybe we're in a problem. But either way, war or not, I believe the American empire is falling. And that's why we're reaching to more desperate solutions. I mean, really, Greenland, that's going to improve our lives? Again, maybe stealing the minerals and the resources there, just like Venezuela. It could be. Maybe we'll see. But either way, when people want to get on this wartime path, most of these people never served in the military or like Trump dodged the draft. And then you ask yourself, are you going to die for this? Maybe so. We'll see. But either way, when people say globalism and nationalism, you really have to ask yourselves, is America the beacon of nationalism? We'll end it here. Let me just see if there's any comment. If anyone's comment, do it. But we'll just leave it here when we talk about nationalism and globalism. I was pretty surprised when I traveled to the non-Western countries, and that is, we're all familiar with Star Wars. And Star Wars had two entities. It had Darth Vader, the Empire, and then Luke Skywalker, the Rebel Alliance. And the Rebel Alliance were the good guys, at least as the movies portrayed. And that's how Americans, we're the good guys. You go overseas and guess what America looks like? And this is even before Trump. This is not just Trump. This is even way before Trump. The world has looked at us as the empire, which makes sense. I mean, we're the most powerful. I mean, we have all the money, the guns, the gold. We are the most powerful. And we're going into, whether it's the Taliban or even Iran, we're picking on smaller opponents. Many times these are not tier one militaries, and we're going in there imposing our way on them, where they look at themselves as the Rebel Alliance. And if this trend continues, and it's definitely accelerated even with Donald Trump, but what did I keep saying about soft power? Not good. Even our own allies like Greenland, remember that, how Donald Trump is portraying himself? Not very good. So we'll keep seeing. But if you're looking more and more like the empire, which I think we are, and other countries start allying with themselves, which they are, sooner or later, there's going to be a collision. And that fuck around and find out might come back to haunt us. Either way, I think most Americans right now, they probably don't know what to do, don't have much power, still believe in MAGA, or they believe in voting. I think a lot of Americans are sort of trapped. And if you think the Democrats are going to save us, no way. It's not going to happen. Meaning, I think many times if you study history, when the ship sink, I mean, I don't want to, I'll end it here, but sort of like when you're on the Titanic and they say the ship is sinking, there's only very few people that have life rafts or have an option or a way to get out and save themselves. Most people are going down with the ship. And I think that's how Americans are thinking too. Like, hey, if America goes down, it goes down. What can I do? Most Americans can't leave America. This ship is going to sink, and it is what it is. So maybe in the meantime, get behind your leader and have hope and faith. But I can tell you, Donald Trump and his rich kids and his billionaire oligarchs, they'll do fine now. They do have life rafts. Same thing with these Democrats. These people are horrible as well. They may be the biggest enemy. I go back to it. Maybe it wasn't a foreign enemy. Maybe it was our own globalist government and globalist corporations. So maybe we are the beacon of globalism. The same enemy we're constantly saying we got to fight against, globalism, globalism. Maybe if America looks in the mirror, we are literally that globalist empire like Star Wars. And all these other nations are really nationalism. We'll see where it goes. But until then, I'm sure these American politicians are too busy thanking military veterans for their service. That's why they don't have time to continue to ignore me about my whistleblower allegations. This is the empire we're living in. Until then, I'm wishing everyone a happy, I guess it's Memorial Day coming up, whatever that means. Until then, to the Patriots, lead to victory.